welcome back to week 7, as we've now figured out, of the podcast. I hope you all had a good week, and it's time for the chaos to ensue.
If that happens, I don't really know.
Who knows? We never do.
Yeah. So, how's your life been, Michael?
Well, I cut my hand and hammered the other this week, so pretty good.
Yeah.
Means I actually got to work on machines rather than standing and watching other people work on machines.
What were you making?
At the start of the week, I was making cylinder rods. I did that Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and part of Thursday. And then Thursday afternoon, I was cutting keyways in a shaft, which I did Friday as well.
Yeah.
Good times. Good times.
Not bad.
Hot metal hurts when it hits you. I know.
I am very aware.
When there's a blade spinning at 755 RPM and shooting hot metal out, they can hurt when they hit you in the neck.
I have a lot of t-shirts with holes burned in them, and I'm rather fond of them.
See, we're required to wear fire-resistant clothing at work.
Yeah, when you take a shop class in high school,
oh yeah, no, I definitely also have
jackets
some
are
shirts with.
suggested.
They weren't even suggested.
There was welding jackets provided, and they were required while we were welding. But if you're just angle grinding something,
I think we,
if you want to wear a jacket, wear a jacket.
In the actual machine shop in high school, I think we had one welding jacket. Like the auto shop had 3 or 4, but in our actual machine class, we had one, and I don't think I ever saw it leave that cabinet. Like, I don't think that cabinet was ever opened.
Huh.
We'd weld, and we'd just be like, alright, and put my hand like this, and then weld with the other hand.
Yeah, we had plenty of jackets, and the jackets for the most part were in decent condition. The real problem was the gloves that were there for use were terrible. Like the class gloves, most of them had a lot of holes in them, and all of them, the leather had stiffened from all of the heat over the years.
Yeah.
And so there were times where the gloves I were using, I could only use 2 fingers, like my ring and pinky, because there were too many holes in the thumb and index to use, and the material in the middle was just too thin or too stiff.
We we had welding helmets, but if you just follow the thing until you don't feel the part anymore, you just close your eyes. So if you're just doing a straight weld,
you could still damage your eyes through your eyelids.
Listen, all right? Listen to the genius. So, with your
Look, man, I'm just telling you how it is.
With your right hand, if you're doing a straight line, you tack it where you just close your eyes every time you pull the trigger. Cuz like, it's a brief second, whatever. And then with your right hand, you start at one end of the part where you're touching just at the end, and then cover your hand, like tuck your hand into your left elbow and slowly wave backwards so you make those nice dimes all the way down to the end. And then when you don't feel resistance anymore because you're not touching the part anymore, you let go of the trigger.
Yeah.
No gloves, no welding helmets, no jackets, just straight line and hope for the best.
Yeah. I wasn't MIG welding. I was stick welding. So I kind of needed to see how much of the stick I was putting into the weld. So that I knew, like, obviously with enough experience and a steady enough hand, you could probably just get the downward motion right. But as you know, steady hand and consistent motion both are not things that should be associated with me.
Consistent motion, I'm oh, mwah, I'm perfect. Steady hand, not at all. But when you're welding, you want to go up and down slightly, right? Like, well, with MIG welding, anyways. So if I just pulled my hand back, the shake in my hand was enough that it made the C shape.
Yeah. Nope. I am a terrible welder.
I'm also a terrible
I'm more than
welder.
I would be more than happy to do my own welding, but I should never be hired by anyone, professionally or just as a friend, being like, "Yeah, I'll give you $10 if you weld this." Like, no. Uh,
See, I'm not a good welder, but I can weld enough on that I know it's not gonna fall off, and then grind it down to look
yeah.
good.
See, my instructor, I think, was really torn over whether or not to let me pass the class
You had an instructor
because
for welding?
he kind of just explained how a welder works and then said what it should look like and sent us into the shop.
You got an explanation of how a welder works?
Yes, because they're expensive.
We literally
They don't
got
just let kids handle expensive things without telling them what they do first.
we literally got the welders over there. If you need something welded, either figure it out or find someone who knows how to weld to show you.
Mm.
Like the lathes,
Also,
they're like, hey, there's lathes over there. This person, this person, and this person all know how to run a lathe. Ask them if you have questions. I was like, dude, you worked in a shop
yeah.
for 15 years before you became a teacher. You can't give us a hand? Like, damn, bro. Great
Also,
guy.
the one thing that I shouldn't say I learned, because I knew this, but I wouldn't have really thought it through enough to realize this. Um, but Hollywood has led people to have the impression that oxygen tanks are incredibly dangerous, which I'm not going to sit here and say they're not, but Hollywood leads you to believe they're dangerous for the wrong reasons. And so the first
Yes.
thing we went over in that class was the acetylene torch. And the instructor was very clear about why the canisters are chained to the wagon that they're on. And if they're not on the wagon, they're chained to the wall, and talking about the pressurized canister and all this stuff. The second thing he reminded us is how irritated he is by people who think oxygen is flammable,
Oxygen isn't
because
flammable,
it
but
is
that
not.
acetylene tank. Oh.
Yes, the acetylene tank next to it, yes, but oxygen itself will not ignite. So, if you have an oxygen tank with a breach in it, right, and it's leaking oxygen, and you bring up a match and put the match into that leak, the match is going to go out because the pressure from the air is going to be enough force that it can't withhold the combustion.
Yeah. You just put the
Because,
match out.
sure, I'm not going to sit here and say oxygen isn't a component of combustion, but fuel is what is actually burned. Oxygen without fuel will never ignite. Fuel without oxygen will never ignite. You need both.
Actually, you need a
Adding
spark
more,
too. But, whatever.
yes, but adding oxygen to a fire may increase the size of a fire, but it can also like put out the fire depending on just how much oxygen you're putting on at once.
Yeah, use
And
an air compressor with pure oxygen. That thing's gone.
and so and to demonstrate this, he turned on the acetylene, lit it, turned on the oxygen, and then was like, now what's going to happen when I turn off the acetylene? It's going to go out. Turns off the acetylene, there's no more fuel. Doesn't matter how much oxygen you pump out, it's not going to catch on fire. So then, fast forward, I don't know, probably less than a year, and my grandmother is talking to my parents about some dead family member, like a relative I had never met, who died probably of lung cancer, something like that, but just smoked for so long, and smoked so much in their life that they ended up on an oxygen tank, but then continued to smoke. And so then they mentioned that the person would have the oxygen tank hooked up and would be smoking right next to the oxygen tank. And my grandmother, my mother, and my father all were like, that's the dumbest thing I've ever heard. Thinking that the oxygen tank would explode if the cigarette got too close to it. To which
we
I then explain that that makes no sense. And then my father, who is a very intelligent man, who with a master's degree, worked uh, in parts procurement, materials procurement for a company that made catalytic converters for power plants. So a company that concerns itself with what happens in combustion and the byproducts of it. A man who, by all means, should know that oxygen is not flammable, who then refused to listen to me, argued with me about it, and told me I was just wrong.
we had a
And
welder who took his oxyacetylene and just turned on the oxygen and took his torch and just like stuck it in front of his face and just took a deep breath in. Was like, "Oh man, you don't understand. I've been high so many times, but oxygen hits different."
yeah,
Killing myself laughing. I'm
but it's
like, man,
just,
I'm just trying to use the bandsaw. Okay.
but just the amount of people that Hollywood has fooled into thinking that oxygen is dangerous, because Hollywood just shows any pressurized container being highly explosive and therefore highly flammable, which,
Yeah.
like, to some extent is true. That a pressurized vessel thrown into a fire will probably burst. And depending on how much pressure there is on that vessel,
Oh
that could be
no.
a very bad
An
thing.
an oxygen tank is gonna explode if you get a good puncture in it. Like if it's just a small little
Yeah.
pinhole leak, you're not gonna get it to explode. But if you get a good puncture in an oxygen tank, it's gonna explode.
But it's going to be like Jaws, where
It's
they
gonna be a
shoot the
pressure
pressurized tank
explosion,
and it
not a.
bursts. Not you shoot the pressurized tank and a fireball ensues.
Yeah.
Now, to be clear, like propane tank, fuel tank, stuff where there's a flammable fuel source inside, I don't know. I haven't done enough testing to say whether
Oh.
or not the bullet piercing the metal will
Oh
spark
yeah.
and
No.
ignite.
It 100% would. If
But
you can
that
ignite
seems much more viable.
but with like stuff like tannerite, you can literally smack that thing with a hammer and it's not gonna explode. But you shoot a bullet at it, and just the pure heat of a bullet moving that fast through the air, not even the friction hitting the metal and creating a spark, just the heat of the bullet traveling that fast through the air generates enough heat to start.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Like, I'm just very tired of
Oh, and
oxygen
I agree.
slander.
You know
like,
what? Go ahead.
because I remember watching a documentary on World War One and the German Zeppelins, these airships that conducted bombing raids, right? And how difficult it was to bring them down. Which, if you're at all familiar with the Hindenburg disaster, seems very strange because it's filled with hydrogen and is highly flammable and easily is destroyed. But when you're flying a plane and you're shooting it with your, I don't know, 30 cal machine guns, the one bullet hole that you're forming is not enough
No.
to deflate
Well,
it fast enough.
it's so
And
well. Not
so,
even that. Like it's not that it's a slow leak. If you get that bullet, like you could shoot it 5 or 6 times right in the bottom and have a giant hole in the bottom. It's still lighter than the air. It's not pressurized.
yeah,
It's just full. Like it's not like a balloon
yeah.
where it's pressurized.
And so then they decided to use phosphorus rounds, tracers, because those react with oxygen and ignite, as then the hydrogen should explode.
But
So
there's not
then
enough
they thought
oxygen
that
in
just,
there.
but there wasn't enough oxygen inside the blimp to ignite it. And so they had to find the right combination of phosphorus and regular rounds to punch big enough holes into the side of the blimp to get enough oxygen inside to where the phosphorus could ignite the
You
hydrogen.
almost need to get above it and then just empty a whole bunch of phosphorus rounds in the top to get
Yeah.
oxygen in, because the hydrogen's going to be going above the oxygen in the air because it's lighter. So it's going to, you have to just riddle it with bullet holes, and a second buddy behind you has to come up with more phosphorus rounds. And then maybe it would
Yeah.
ignite.
So the combination that they used, I think, was 2 or 3 regular rounds for every phosphorus round, which then actually just became a standard way of loading
Well, it's probably cheaper.
machine guns um for airplane for certain kinds for certain uses, because then you have every 3 or 4 rounds be a tracer round so that you can see where you're shooting,
Yeah.
but then the rounds in between aren't tracers because tracers are, depending on the scenario, less effective. um Tracers also are not the perfect weapon, because if you can see where you're shooting,
Someone
they
else can
can
see
see
where
where you're
you're
shooting
shooting
from.
from. Yeah.
And that is why I believe the average life, I can't remember the specific statistic, but the average lifetime of a machine gunner in Vietnam after they started firing their M60 was less than 10 seconds in a firefight.
Yeah, I believe it. Pretty easy to pick out from the crowd. Speaking of like life
Uh,
expectancies, you know what's a really weird statistic?
7 seconds. That's what I thought. Yeah.
A really weird statistic
What's
about
the
life expectancy. The US Marines life expectancy compared to a general machinist is actually higher.
That makes
The
sense.
Marines have a higher life expectancy.
That actually makes a lot of sense.
Well, when you combine
Because
everything
it,
like
it
fast moving things that are made to cut through metal, extreme heat, a lot of fumes.
yeah, in the current status of the United States military, if you don't die in a training exercise, which unfortunately does happen quite often, you're probably not going to die in service. And so then it just becomes a question of what health problems do you develop due to your service? And certain positions and jobs within the military have more adverse health problems than others. For example, door gunners and
Oh
like
yeah,
chopper pilots, they have
they have
tons of
so
associated
much
health
shit
problems.
going into their lungs. It's insane.
Yes, it's a lot of carcinogens. They often die of cancer or other related issues. And the thing is, every door gunner, I say every, like most door gunners know that that's a reality shortly after taking the job,
And they
but
just don't care.
they all pretty much agree that if someone has to do it and why not them?
I feel like, I'll be honest here for a second, you have to have just the right mindset of not completely suicidal, where you want to be like a paratrooper on the front lines, but
Mhm.
suicidal enough, you know, to be a
Oh,
door gunner.
like
Like, because you know going into
I'm not
that,
gonna
you're
say,
dying young.
yeah, I'm not gonna say I am the ideal soldier or like I am Rambo or something like that. But my personality and my mentality, if I ever did join the armed services,
Oh, I'd be a door gunner
I
for
would
sure.
fit right in.
I'd be a door gunner for
Like
sure.
there are so many people in the service or veterans that I know that I just hit it off with so easily. Like Daniel Rex, for example,
Oh yeah.
has just been like, yeah, you would do just
Me
fine in
and
the military.
me me and him just click so well too. I love me and Rex. Me and Josiah have always been really close, but it's been like a different kind of, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's been a different kind of
I mean,
relationship.
we were the only two like non-senior staff to get invited to Josiah's wedding.
I I got invited and I felt so bad that I couldn't go. Like I felt
Yeah.
so bad. I like not even I couldn't go because I was busy. I couldn't go because I had work or whatever. I couldn't physically go legally.
Yeah, I know.
I was like, I want to so bad.
Was it? It wasn't into COVID, was it?
No, but there had been. It was just before COVID, and our border had already got locked down.
Yeah. Okay. I knew there was something with the border, and that was why you
It
couldn't
was it was
come, but I
before
couldn't
a full
remember.
lockdown happened, but after the
Yeah.
border got shut down. I was like, no, damn it,
Because like
because I was
I
planning.
remember like being there, nobody was wearing masks. Like it was definitely
Yeah,
pre-shutdown. When
you guys also shut down
when
after
was
us. When
it?
was it? Was it? Oh,
I don't have
actually,
an
it might have been
invitation.
during the school year, and that's why I couldn't go because it was during the week or like a Friday or something.
It was definitely a Saturday. I know that for a fact, but it was,
But even
I
a
believe,
Saturday,
during
I
the
wouldn't get there
school.
in time.
It was during the school week, like school year though, because I remember uh like talking to people on campus and being like, "Oh yeah, I'm going to a friend's wedding this weekend." So it definitely was just a
I
random
probably
weekend
do
during the
have the
school year.
email.
Email.
I think he emailed it to me. It might have been on Facebook.
I received a physical invitation.
I also might have, but I think he emailed it to me too. Josiah.
It was
Oh, wait, hold
it
on.
was pretty fun. It was definitely weird because it was like 2.5 hours, three from my parents' house, and I didn't know exactly what time the wedding was. So I was just like, you know what? They're not going to turn me away if I show up early. So I just showed up at like 9, 10 in the morning. They're still setting up stuff. Like I helped set up the reception area and do a bunch of stuff. I'm just kind of like twiddling my thumbs while Daniel and Josiah are busy with wedding prep. Like I know so few people here, and just had to wait for gym clubbers to show up. Then yeah, I got Tyler with coffee. I got coffee with Tyler before the wedding. Um, and then that night I spent the night at Daniel's apartment. And then the morning went to Denny's with Daniel, Tyler, and some gym clubbers that I had never met who lived in the area that were like probably there like my first year or two, but I didn't remember them because I was a child.
um, yeah, it would have been. It was October 26th.
Hmm.
So yeah,
2019.
I would have been at school and had hockey and everything still then. Yeah, 2019. But I would have loved to go. And then well, because that happening was like my I'm going to do a road trip and go down all the way to Alabama and come
Yeah.
back for March break. And then I didn't because COVID hit. But I was planning on going to visit them and I think um Leonard Rex said I could stay at their guest house when I came down.
That makes sense.
And then stay there for the night. Like my first leg would be to PA and then I'd stay in I'd go to PA first, go in the morning, hang out with people, and then go to Ohio and then head down to Virginia to meet up with you, go down to the Rexes. I think that was my plan. I don't remember. It was a while ago.
Yeah.
But that
No, for
general
sure.
idea, travel down that side of the coast, and then on the last day of March break, I was just gonna spend the whole day driving back home.
There's been a handful of gym club weddings since like 2019. Like I know Bob got married.
Did he? Look at him
He
go.
did. Yeah, he got married during the pandemic. Like during lockdown.
Oh yeah, look at him.
Cuz yeah, literally literally what happened is he was engaged. They had plans to get married in I think June. Then the lockdown was announced and they were just like, "Oh, so we're not going to get to have our wedding. Guess we'll get married now." And, like did a courthouse wedding, I guess, so that they could move in together and go through the pandemic together, which is kind of nice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think my plan was go to Erie and then maybe stop in Pitt or like go to Erie and then for the day go to Akron because that's where my uncle lives. Stay in Akron.
Yeah.
Then on the way through, stop in Pittsburgh just to see Pittsburgh, and then
Fair enough.
come down to Virginia. This on day 2, I'd get to Virginia, and then depending on what time it was, I'd probably end up near Raleigh, or stay with you and then
Yeah.
end up in Raleigh on day 3, and then go down to Bama. I
Would have
think
been
that was
something.
my idea. And then from Bama, just go straight up back to Detroit and cross the border in Detroit.
Detroit.
Detroit?
Is this you being tired, or do Canadians call Detroit Detroit?
Detroit?
Yeah.
I call it whatever I feel like saying at that particular point in time, and that's about it. Like, I don't know, man. I'm
But
not the
I need to know now if this is unique to you. I'm curious. I'm not making
I
fun of
don't
you.
know.
I
I
need to know if I need to
I
make fun of your
don't know.
country.
I don't know. You know, just for you, when we get on tonight to play GTA with the boys after the podcast, I will ask them all to say the word Detroit and see what happens.
Okay.
See, my problem is, yes, I do have a lot of. I've lived in Canada my whole life, so of course I have a lot of things that Canadian people say. I also, the other side of my family, my dad's side, are both Americans. Like my dad's
Yeah,
an
bud.
American, my like big man's an American, and so is Papa. Papa was born and raised in West Virginia, and um, served in the military and moved to Canada when he was like 30 something,
Yeah.
and got married and had my dad. Actually, I think he met my grandmother before that, but I don't know. Last year, I learned he has a tattoo of my grandmother naked on his shoulder. I thought that was pretty neat. Very military of him. It's a
Yeah.
miracle that man doesn't glow in the dark.
That's true of a lot of people.
Like, if I'm being completely honest here.
Yeah.
Okay, he was on one of the first ever nuclear submarines. That'll get you some radiation exposure right there. And if that doesn't do it, he,
Probably.
he was on the first nuclear submarine to circumnavigate the globe. So he has like the Golden Dragon Award, I think, is what it's called.
I don't know.
Oh, I'll look it up. He got sprayed with Agent Orange before he was in Vietnam. He had a gas mask on, but still.
Yeah.
He also, um, he also has a watch that glows in the dark,
Mm-hmm.
but it also glows in broad daylight because it's
Mm-hmm.
radioactive. That he wears
Yeah.
to this day.
Nothing wrong with that.
It's sick. I'm so confused.
Yeah.
Ah,
Uh, what's confusing you there, bud?
1961. That sounds about right. That would have been the right time frame
For what?
for when my papa was in a submarine. Do. Well, that ain't it. First American sub to circumnavigate the world. Circumnavigate the world. There we go. Triton. Will it tell me the crew of Triton? Not the Britannica. I don't trust the Britannica. The Britannica is stupid. Crew? Can I look at the crew? Is that a thing? Doo doo doo. It was Triton's total reactor output. Yep, it had a reactor. Okay. That's what I needed to know. Is crew a thing? Uh, honors and awards. Doo doo doo. There's a lot of things to read here. I can't read all of that. I'm an idiot. Jesus.
Uh, Michael, you know what I did in class this last week?
What did you do in class
Or
this
the last
last
2
week?
weeks, I guess. Watch Star Wars.
Nice.
Like, I have a quiz due tomorrow on episode 4 of Star Wars. Like a graded assignment. College is a scam.
College is in fact a scam.
I will say this so many times in my life. College is a scam. Education is a scam. Now
You're
when I say
preaching
that,
to the
obviously
choir
there is
here.
value in education in general. Uh like as someone who is intending to be a high school teacher, I do see value in education. However, education as it currently exists is a scam.
I agree. Continue.
It is unnecessary to teach in the formats that are taught, and very little is actually gained. Too much emphasis is put on facts and not enough on interpretation.
I agree. Continue.
Well, for example, history class, as people understand it in high school, is what happened on this day in history. When the better question is, why is this day in history important? So, an example, most people should have learned that the assassination of Archduke Franz Ferdinand started World War One.
Yes.
Now, did Indian soldiers fighting under the British flag die in like Afghanistan, I think it was, because they personally were affected by the death of this archduke. I mean, you can argue, yes, they were personally affected because that started the cataclysm, but no, there are greater powers at play. And so, to explain World War One starting from the assassination of Archduke Franz Ferdinand is disingenuous. However, due to standardized testing and just time constraints, as well as intelligence restraints to some extent, like some people just aren't very intelligent and are therefore hard to teach. You're not able to explain to a 16-year-old the nuances of the geopolitical situation. Even though at the time 16-year-olds were dying because of the nuances of the geopolitical situation. Like, nationalism had been on the rise since the French Revolutions, I'll say. Probably a little before that. Because pre-Enlightenment, all that you had to worry about was whether or not your crops were coming in. And as you may or may not know, societies based on agriculture tend to be more religious than societies based on industry.
Oh, really? No.
Because you don't need God to control the weather to get your machine to work, because your machine sits in a building. However, you do need to rely on God to send rain so your crops will grow.
This
So
is
it's
true.
not, as some people believe, that an industrialized society is more civilized or more intelligent because they don't believe in God, whereas an agricultural or rural society does. But it's literally one society has more agency over their life than the other. And when you don't have agency, you turn to those in power. And since praying to a cloud itself does not make sense because you understand that the cloud itself is not sentient, believing in praying in some sentient force that controls the cloud does make sense. And so, pre Enlightenment, you didn't care if you lived in France or England or Germany. None of that mattered. You cared if you lived in such and such town, because that town is where you went for goods and services. You didn't care about who the king was, unless he was like a dick, I guess. Post Enlightenment, people are putting more emphasis on science and on math and are advancing. And all of a sudden, it does matter what country you live in and how that country feels about the next country over, because that country might be the one that's supplying coal for your furnaces, or maybe they're building the parts for your machines. And so there's this wave of new political philosophy, this wave of nationalism, and this idea of being proud of the country you are from for no other reason than you were born there.
Yeah.
Literally, that's it. Like, nationalism slash patriotism doesn't make a lot of sense when you remember that the only reason that I might prefer America to Canada and you might prefer Canada to America is we happen to be born there. Because I've never lived in Canada, so I can't objectively say whether or not Canada is a better place than the United States. Now, there are some places that you could argue there's a big enough gap in lifestyle that you can just listen to other people who have moved from one place to the other and realize that you live in a better place. For example, there's a Syrian refugee crisis right now because of the civil war happening there. I trust the Syrian refugees that come to America or Canada or European nations that those places are better than Syria. I don't need to live in Syria to realize
Yeah.
that.
No, I don't think so either.
However, I haven't met a lot of Swedish people that say America is so much greater than Sweden. I also haven't met a lot of Americans who have gone to Sweden, lived there for a long time, and then come back and said that Sweden's a significantly better place than America. So for that reason, I don't need to believe that either is better than the other. But that was not the case in uh, Europe leading up to World War One. And really, nationalism was kind of a big part of like the Napoleonic Wars as well. But nationalism was a big part of the rise of Germany leading up to World War One, because Germany didn't exist during the age of Napoleon. There was Prussia, there was like Hanover, there was Austria, there was a bunch of different areas that had ethnically and culturally German peoples, but Germany was not a united nation until Bismarck took power and unified Germany. Once Germany was unified and all proud to be German, which was kind of just a propaganda bit to get all the countries that were annexed into Germany to be on board with being annexed into Germany, that can then lead you to war because you think you're better than everybody. And so when your ally's leader is killed and you want to strike back and the alliance system crumbles, and there was a bit more than just the alliance system, all of a sudden it makes kind of sense to be at war with everyone else. Now, nationalism has fallen out of favor in Europe, hence like the EU. We can very much blame the fall of nationalism out of fashion in Europe on one man, Hitler. Hitler used German nationalism to rise to power, do terrible things, and then pretty much everyone in Europe collectively agreed nationalism has led us to several wars. This is dumb. Let's all be friendly. Meanwhile, the United States has not figured that out yet because the US hasn't gone to war with any of its neighbors simply because it thought it was better than them in a while. It's gone to war with like some rice farmers, sure, or poppy farmers if you're going to talk about the Middle East. But nationalism is in some ways falling out of favor in the United States, and in some ways it's just as strong as others, as it always has been. That's kind of how we see the rise of power of Trump. Like, not specifically Trump getting elected because of nationalism, but Trump continuing to be relevant and continuing to have a lot of power in the United States, even though he's no longer president, because his followers are very nationalistic and very confused. So, yep, quick history lesson.
So, while you've been chatting about nationalism, I've been looking for literally any military record.
Yeah.
Literally any military record of my papa. And
Yep.
accidentally found the person I'm named after.
Oh, that's cool.
Who would be my great-great-grandfather.
Huh.
Well, because my great-grandfather would be Doy Richards Sr., and I'm looking for Doy Richards Jr.
I think you went the wrong way there.
I accidentally found a senior, and of course that brings me to my great-great-grandfather as, his father.
Oh, yeah.
And, yeah. I don't want Canadian military records. That's not gonna help me. Oh, I also did find out that my papa from West Virginia and my nana from Ohio? No. Yeah, Ohio. Got married in California, then moved to Ontario. What?
What were they doing in California?
Getting married, apparently.
Not the state that I think of people going to specifically just to get married. That would be Nevada.
Yeah. You haven't met my papa.
Drift. That's fair. I have only met your mother, your father, and your sister. I've not met your father in person.
I think you have
I would
once.
like to clarify. I don't know.
Please be Thank you. I can search by branch. Now can I search
Like,
by name?
if he was at camp the time that your sister was your first year, then maybe.
Yes, he came with me my first year.
But other than that, the only interaction I've had with your sister has been like maybe 2 Discord calls. So I don't even like, obviously I've met her, but it doesn't feel fair to say that I have, if that makes
Yeah.
sense.
Can I search by names? Please? Man,
Like,
this government website sucks. Can't I
I
just
also
look up by
have met
name?
your mom and remember meeting your mom, but I don't remember hardly anything about her. I just remember she was at camp
Yeah,
for a week
I
while I
don't,
was there
I don't
because
blame
she was
you.
like medical director.
Mom's been to camp for like probably 7 or 8 weeks total.
Yeah. No.
Dude, why is finding military records about a specific person help? Oh, because it's only open 62 years after they leave the military? Well, that's not helpful.
Why 62? That seems rather
It does
arbitrary.
seem like a really random number. Hold on, let me see if I can find out. The service member separated from the military. Military personnel records are open to the public 62 years after they leave the military. To calculate this, take the current year and subtract 62. Wow! Records of any veteran separated from the military 62 years or more can be ordered by anyone for a copying fee. What if it's been
Wait,
less than
what
62
site is this?
years? Um, nationalarchives.gov or archives.gov/veterans/military service records.
Gov slash veterans slash military records.
Military-service-records.
My word.
Records of individuals who have left service less than 62 years ago are subject to access restrictions. Only limited information or copies may be released to the general public within provisions of law. The Freedom of Information Act and the Privacy Act provide balance between the right of public domain to obtain information from military service records and the right to former military service members' protection of his or her privacy.
Oh, it's archives.gov, not nationalarchives.gov. That
Yeah,
would be
sorry.
why I was struggling. Um,
But I just want to know what years my papa served from, man. Can't I just look
um,
up?
request service records. I don't start request online. I don't. I would like to just find online versions of their records rather than uh
First name Doy, last name Richards. View results. That's a lot of results. Continue with Facebook. Sure. Fuck it. We found 2 results for your search. Oh, a whole 2 results, eh? Well, World War II and World War II. Lovely. I found Senior again. Motherfucker. In fairness, he fought in World War II and has survived because he died in like 2000 or something.
make new request.
I don't know what year my papa was born in.
Branch of service. I believe it was Air Force. Oh, was it Army Air Force or was it Air Force? Great question. Also, I can find records for Philippine guerrillas. Interesting, interesting.
Nice, nice. I don't know what year my papa was born in. Well, he didn't die, so that ain't it. I just want to find my papa on this website about military history. Yeah, I found Doy Morgan Sr. twice. He was
What
a freaking
exactly
legend.
does the first name Doi mean?
This Doy?
Yeah, I've just never heard that name before.
No idea. It's been a name that's been in my head since I was super little, so to me it just seems like a regular name. It means I give in Spanish. Ah, but in Northern English it meant a beloved person.
Okay, where exactly are you looking? Because what I was filling out, I believe, was for like receiving physical copies of their record, and I don't want physical copies.
I also
I would
don't want
just
military. I don't want physical copies either. If I wanted physical
like,
copies, I'd drive to Caledonia and pick up physical copies. Like,
I just want to look at some
can I?
general stuff, you know? I'm just gonna.
My problem is I can find my great grandfather really easily. Like, you put in Doy Richards, and he's the first thing to show up. Doy Richards. Oh, actually, that's not true. The first thing that comes up when you look up Doy Richards is a LinkedIn account for, I'm assuming, my papa. Yep, people who have viewed this have also viewed John L. Richards, Jeffrey Richards, Don Clark, who was my papa's business partner, and Stephen Harless, who worked for my papa. There's also something saying Doy Richards passed away on December 13th, 2016, which he didn't. uh,
I have no clue if I'm at all looking in the right place.
I don't know,
Where
man.
where are you searching?
DoyRichards.com? That's not him.
Like, talk to me about your process of getting to where you are.
At this point, I've given up and Googled the name Doy Richards to see what happens.
My word. Go back. I want to find my grandfather. This is a nice podcast episode we're having here.
Michael tries to find his grandfather's military records and struggles. Doy Richards. Doy Morgan Richards. That's what I need. I need Morgan. You put Doy Morgan in there? That's how you get to Doy Morgan Sr., who died in the year 2000. Shortly after my sister was born, in fact. Just as a throwing that out there. I knew that one already, actually.
Casualty records. That's not what I want.
Question: if I put it, I don't know what her middle name is, but Lois Sam might help. If I spelled that right. No, not Louisiana.
See, okay, so this is part of the problem is looking at this archive. So records of awards and decorations of honor during the Vietnam conflict. And then the dates listed starts in 1969. My grandfather was in Vietnam before 69. He was there in 67, I think. Maybe in 68. So that database just isn't probably the most
I
helpful.
can't spell Lois. How do you spell Lois?
Lois. Anyway.
Lois Ann. Is that a thing? What? How do you spell Lois Ann?
Lois hyphen Ann, probably.
Now if I
Ann
type in
being
Richards,
Anne.
Lois Ann Richards, 1947 to 2018. Yep, that's what I was looking for. Lois Ann Richards, when were you married? Lois Ann M.J. Richards. That ain't it. Yeah, but the weird thing about this is, I know that this is on Ancestry, because I found my papa getting married on Ancestry. Therefore,
I've never done anything with Ancestry.com.
that's because they make you pay.
That is why. Exactly.
Like, if you want to learn anything about a person,
Like I don't care about my family enough to pay to find out about dead people.
well, the thing about anything I'm trying to find is that I can just go to Caledonia and get it for free.
Yeah.
My papa was born in 1942. And I only know this. I only know this because I looked up Lois Ann Richards, got
Mm-hmm.
to the web, got to Ancestry.com, and there's a picture of her tombstone where on one side it says Lois Ann 1947 to 2018, and on the other side it says Doi 1942.
Yeah.
Like, perfect. Well, he ain't dead yet. He don't get away that easily.
This is very unrelated, but it's something I would like to talk about in general.
Okay.
Do you have Netflix, correct?
Yes.
Have you been watching the new television show Arcane being released by Riot Games?
Yes, you've talked to me about this.
But are you watching it or no?
I'm not watching it, no.
Okay. Because it is incredibly good. And that's coming from someone who plays the game it's based off of, so obviously I'm going to enjoy it to some extent. But it's also just good for someone who has never even touched the game and just finds TV interesting. Like one of my roommates doesn't play at all, and he's enthralled by it. It's just
Oh, ooh, I have a problem.
what?
Turns out you can make a family tree on Ancestry.com
Mm-hmm.
for free.
Interesting.
But I don't remember my dad's birthday fully. Because I can never remember if his is uh, the 26th or the 27th, because my parents' birthdays are one day after another, and I can never remember if my mom's is the 25th or the 26th.
Yeah. Do Canadians put the date Like in the
Dude,
American way, or in the or not British, but the European way? Like, is it month first or day first?
I put it whatever way it tells me to on the paper, if I'm honest.
Okay, if the paper itself tells you a way, that makes sense. But like,
I don't know, I'm not very often writing the date. Normally I'd write
and
out June 23rd, 2002 would be how I wrote that out.
wild.
I
Like,
like
you're saying you would actually say the word June?
I'd write June,
Yeah.
comma, 23rd, comma, 2002.
Why is there a comma between June and 23rd?
Cause I feel like it.
I need a better
Problem?
reason than that, Michael.
Cause I do what I want, bitch.
I need a much better reason than that.
Nope. That's the reason you get?
Isn't that something?
Like, sorry, but what are you gonna do?
I will do absolutely nothing right now because I cannot be bothered. But one day, I may be bothered.
I cannot find, like, this man doesn't exist on the internet. His dad does, but he doesn't. Which to me is wild.
Fantastic. Well, Michael, it's been an hour.
It has been an hour.
We've
But I'm
talked
so
about
enthralled.
everything and nothing. We didn't even introduce ourselves
We did
this time. We
just
just
went
went in.
for it. We just went for it, buddy.
I'm not upset by this.
Me neither, I'll be honest. I found a family tree. Hold on. There's one more important thing. Oh, fuck you, Ancestry.com. Fuck Ancestry.com. That's my last thing. That's it.
All right. Well, this has been CNM in the PM. I was Joe. That was Michael. You can find us either at throughout the week. You can find myself at twitch.tv, casual Joe _ gaming. You can find Michael also on Twitch at Mikester390. You can find this stream streamed live at 11 p.m. Eastern on Saturdays, CNM in the PM on Twitch. You can also listen to it on Spotify or watch a recording of the Discord, or probably actually just a recording of whatever Michael is doing.
I probably could do that next time, but
probably safe not to. On YouTube at CNM in the PM. Tune in next week.